teachers of Reddit, what's the most trashy NSFW story you heard from your students about their parents? Middle son informed his kindergarten teacher that I was growing grass in the house. I was like lawn grass, not marijuana, in a large tray for my guinea pigs. I got to meet a cop and a social worker. We were all very amused. My student's older sister had just had a C-section. After having a baby, she's 20. His father hates her and let his dog attack her. She had torn stitches, was kicked out of their house along with her son, and no place to go right before Christmas. My student spent winter break trying to talk his mom into letting him and his sister move in with her. She said no, because she has a new family. Edit, his sister is staying with a friend and working on finding an apartment. He's still living with his father, but he's barely home due to school/work. I once taught a girl 9 at the time, who was absent on the Monday and when back on the Tuesday, told me she had been sick from drinking mum's special drinks. After some digging, we discovered her stepdad, a known addict, had tried to commit suicide on the Friday evening, failed, and then had a second lease on life, which gave him the idea to host an impromptu all-night party on the Saturday. Girl and younger sister were apparently as much part of the party as everyone else, and had essentially hoovered up all of the half-finished booze they found, left unattended, and got smashed, hence the hangover on the Monday. Bonus, the mother has since left the stepdad and is now dating her cousin. He sometimes arrives to pick up the children without a shirt on. I gave a lesson about methamphetamine in a health class I was teaching. I had little anonymous exit slips for kids to fill out with lingering questions and feedback. One kid wrote, "Now I understand why my stepdad acts the way he does." My mom was a teacher and a 4th grader came up to her when it was time for parent-teacher meetings. "Kid, I just wanted to tell you that my mom is kind of weird." My mom, "Everybody's a little weird. I'm sure she'll be fine." Kid, "She has her nipples pierced and wears a chain between them." And my mom said it was obvious. When I was a senior in high school, we did a little project with kindergartners. Before we started, the teacher asks everyone how their weekend was, and one of the students tells the room about this cool game his uncle took him to where they get chickens to fight each other. 5 minutes later, the principal takes him away. That was 10 years ago. I have no clue what happened afterwards. My mom works at home. Her clients come to visit her there. Turns out she was a sex worker and was operating out of the bedroom while her oldest child watched the younger ones in the living room. I volunteered at my son's preschool. The first day, each kid was asked to say something about themselves. For example, my son said he likes basketball. The next boy said, "My older sister has loose morals." The teacher asks the lad if he is sure. Not only is he sure, but his mom is taking her to see Drive Jones about it. When his mom gets him, she explained that Dr. Jones is a dentist. This boy's sister has loose molars. A young teen boy who said the only math he needs to know is how to weigh drugs correctly to be like his dad. That made me sad. That was in a school in a crappy part of London 5 years back. My sister's ex is a drug dealer. Once she found out that he was having his kids under age 6 do work with him in his grow house. Teacher said his backpack smelled like cat pee. Smell was actually weed, and he told his mom about how his dad was showing him his work. Sister told him she would call police if he does that again, and he just ranted about how he is proud of what he does and isn't going to hide it from his kids. Not a teacher, but as a student in the 5th grade, our teacher told us that adults who do drugs can sometimes become so addicted they are not able to pay for their house, and then they lose the house. A classmate raised her hand and said, "That's what happened to my dad." The teacher responded, "Oh Christy honey, that wasn't because he was on drugs, he just had a hard time with the bills." Christy's response, "No, he was on drugs." Several seconds of silence were followed by the continuation of the math lesson. My wife's is the teacher, but I was there for this event. Basically, I was chaperoning a field trip for her class and was there for student drop-off. One of the moms came into the room wearing a sweatsuit with the top unzipped and lingerie under it. Not the ambiguous is it or isn't lingerie, but see-through mesh. I can see her breasts and nipples clearly. Lingerie. My mother is a teacher and she came home one day and told me a story about how in a kindergarten class they were seeing if a plant would grow better in the sunlight or in the dark. One kid said that the plant in the dark would grow better, and when they asked him why, he said, "My parents grow big plants in the closet." As it turns out, the parents were illegally growing marijuana. Had a girl say on the first day that she was named after her dad's ex because her mom was tired of seeing the ex's name tattooed on her dad's chest and wanted to associate the tattoo with something else. In grade 3, my son told his teacher one Monday that his dad was doing joints all weekend and he helped. Of course, the teacher asked him to explain himself. You know, doing joints. It was really messy though, and mommy told him I shouldn't help. Teacher continues questioning and finally figured out that my joints were made of wood. I had been doing some woodworking that weekend and we were joining 2 pieces of wood with a biscuit joiner, and he helped me with the glue up, which somehow in an 8-year-old's mind became doing joints. Parent-teacher night was pretty hilarious. Slightly off prompt, after an assembly and football game one night, there was a student staying after everyone had left. My principal went to talk to him and discovered that his mom had not arrived to pick him up. When they got her on the phone, my principal reports that the mom was overheard yelling at her son, "I told you not to go. This is my night to go to the casino. You can just wait you us there." My principal and the student report that the mom was clearly intoxicated. My principal ended up taking the student home in their private vehicle around midnight. That student went on to be arrested for breaking and entering throughout the community. The kicker? The student got a taste for B&E when our school renovated the cafeteria and stored all of the non-perishables in a portable. He would break in just to get something to eat because there was no food at home. I believe that this student remains incarcerated at this time. My cousin Hoss, a teacher, told me this one. A few years ago he was teaching at a summer school for underprivileged kids to keep them off the streets and out of trouble. One day, one of the younger girls, 7 or 8 years old, was crying, so she naturally went up and asked her, "What's wrong? Miss, that boy over there keeps saying my mum's a prostitute. Don't listen to him. Has making it up just to be mean." "No miss, she is a prostitute, but he doesn't have to keep saying it." Needless to say, she was gobsmacked. Just like everyone else, she tells the story to I'm not a teacher, but in my sophomore year of high school I passed by a girl and all I heard her say was "me and my dad had sex last night." I assigned an assignment where students had to select a piece of music that they thought conveyed mourning or sadness. They then had to write a couple sentences on it explaining how it conveyed that emotion. One of my students misunderstood the assignment and proceeded to write 2 pages about how the song conveys sadness because it reminds them about their drug addict mother who left them and has been in and out of their life because she keeps choosing the drugs over the kids. It was really sad. This kid isn't a great student, and it was sobering to see what is affecting them at home to influence their behavior at school. Edit, effect vs effect. Kind of reversed from what you are asking, but I had a teacher who had 4 different last names in 4 years. Each new school year she had a new last name. I had her 3 of the 4 years. I thought the name changes were odd at the time, but didn't fully compute why they happened. 3 years after high school I had just turned 21, and I was at a local bar, and she was singing karaoke, and she was hammered. When she was done singing I yelled, "Hell yes, Mrs. Shepherd," and she walked over to me and told me she just got married, and her name was now something else, which I don't remember. TL. Doctor, I had a teacher who was married to at least 4 different guys in 7 years. Not a teacher. But I bet my old teacher would place this here. Circa 1993, a classmate in 3rd grade. She was tragically and blatantly neglected by her family and severely behind in school, yet had the biggest heart ever. She smelled terrible, was always filthy, and could barely read. We all knew she had a shoot life and still always tried to be decent to her. It was Halloween, and as per usual, all the kids were bringing in candy to hand out, including our not so fortunate classmate, which was a shocker to most of us as we were aware of her family's financial state. So we all finish up with passing out our candy and we are allowed to enjoy some of it, including the milk duds our classmate so graciously shared. And then she proclaimed, "Oh yeah, Me and my uncle really lucked out while dumpster diving this week when we found these. I don't remember seeing much of her after that. Fast forward to maybe 3 years later. Happened to see the old classmate at the local Halloween parade. Wearing a nice, clean, warm coat. Looking very happy and very healthy. And she introduced me to her foster family. I was pretty happy for that kid. Being a kid myself. Cause her parents sucked. Had one student that was extremely smart, but she did have problems with ADHD. The mother would regularly sell her daughter's prescription medication, rather than giving it to her daughter. Had another parent when confronted about her child stealing a pair of shoes flatly stated, "Who wouldn't steal a pair of shoes that were just sitting on the bench with no one watching them?" She just couldn't process that someone might look at the shoes and not take them. I dated a girl who worked at a daycare. She came home all upset one day and told me this story. They'd caught a little boy who had taken off his belt and wrapped it around his arm. When they asked him what he was doing, he started slapping his arm and said he was looking for a good one. He was pantomiming his parents' search for a good vein in which to inject drugs. I'm not a teacher, but was very close with my high school math teacher, and I went out for a beer with him after graduating college, and he told me this gem. One of his students in his class fricked another student's mom. To give fake names and make things easier, Jim fricked Stus's mom. My teacher heard it happened at a party at Stus's house after her mother drunkenly came home from a night out. Stussy became super pissed as her parents had recently gotten divorced and she wanted revenge. What did she do? Stussy sought out and ended up fricking Jim's dad, and not much later found out she was pregnant from that encounter, which also split up Jim's family. This was something that every student and teacher knew about the situation. Stussy ended up getting an abortion, and Jim was pissed at her for splitting up his family. They must have each needed a shoulder to cry on, because they started dating not long afterwards. WTF-1, and to top it all off, not too long after his divorce, Jim's dad started dating Stus's mom. WTF-2 My teacher told me that months later, a different teacher in the school saw Jim's dad and Stus's mom out at dinner. She had recognized them from P/T conferences and struck up a conversation about their kids. Apparently, they hadn't talked about their kids at all since they'd been together, and the conversation that ensued was not a pretty one. Once Stus's mom had figured out that the person sitting across from her had been the one to get her daughter pregnant, shit hit the fan. I guess it's hard to realize you're the female equivalent of Eskimo brothers with your daughter to a man that got your daughter pregnant and a man you've been dating for a few months. WTF-3 That's all I got, coach. Edit. Thank you all for the silver, gold. Wow. Thank you, kind stranger. My co-worker had a student who brought a ball gag in his backpack. He had no idea what it was. She was grateful the parents' answering machine picked up instead of having a conversation. She simply said, name of kid brought something in his backpack that he probably had no permission to bring.
N.
Not a teacher, but worked in a school during college. One girl told me that her parents wanted to move to Florida. So I asked if she wanted to or had ever been. She said no and said her parents went to visit and see if there was a place they liked. So I asked her when did her parents go and what did they think/find. She said no, they are there now and have been for 2 weeks. Oh, so who's watching you while they're away? She said nobody, I'm home alone. This was her 11-year-old girl. My girlfriend is a primary school teacher who had a child tell her just before Christmas that his dad grows Christmas trees in the spare bedroom. Impressive to fit a Christmas tree orchard in the house. I had a kid. His dad started giving him booze around 8, smoking weed with him around 10, and at 13 they smoked some crack together. Mom was over this shoot, so she split and married another dude. This guy was a raging alcoholic piece of shit. One evening he rolls into the living room with a 12 gauge, puts it in his mouth and rapidly removes the back of his head with some 00 buckshot. He was 14, his sister 12, and they were sitting on the couch eating dinner. Kid still loves his mama. I think she makes poor decisions. Not a teacher, but I'm sure there are teachers out there would tell this story of me. Most of this is a retelling from my mom though, as I don't remember it much. In elementary school, not sure what grade/age we had, they're coming to talk about drugs and alcohol. Now I was a very naive child, my own doing, and after the meeting I went to my teacher bawling because I thought my mom was an alcoholic and was driving us to school drunk every day because she would always have a very large closed cup of what she called an adult drink. Said teacher took me to the principal's office and they called in my mom. At this point the school had already alternates authorities, no clue if it was cops or CPS, I just know some sort of authority was there to monitor. My mom comes in and they sit her down and bring up what I told her and said that they needed to open an investigation. My mom just starts hysterically laughing and they all get super pissed off. She finally gets out that it's coffee. I ratted out what I thought was my alcoholic mom for her morning coffee habit. After minor digging they let her go and now it's a funny story my mom tells to embarrass me. Not a teacher, but a former HS student. Parents of my classmate were mad at him to the point where they said you can find some place else to live then for not sharing his girlfriend with his older brother. Last I saw, the two of them got married and his family was not at the wedding. Obligatory not a teacher and slightly off topic. Had a friend who was a teacher of young children. She had a mother come to her on the first day and tell her son wasn't potty trained. So if he needed to pee, my friend would have to hold his penis for him. My friend explained that that was inappropriate and she wouldn't be able to do that. Friend thought that was the end of it. But the next day, the mother comes back with a pair of chopsticks and tells my friend that seeing as she can't hold her son's penis with her hands, she could use the chopsticks to hold it and just keep the chopsticks in her desk drawer throughout the day. 1. Yuck. 2. WTF. Buddy of mine is a teacher/coach. He told me this story. He was going to grad school to try to become a principal and would see a student of his at the same university he was at. He told me that this female student of his, once she was in college, told him a story about one of the coaches he was working with. This coach is an old guy in his mid-60s, never married, no kids, and has been coaching at this school for over 20 years. He keeps in good shape as he is a coach and doesn't actually teach anything other than gym/football. When she was 16, she was hooking up with this old coach. Once she went over on a Saturday night and he was watching UFC. He said to give him a minute because he needed to pop some Viagra. They started attempting to have sex, but he couldn't get it up. So he said hold on and walked out. She was waiting on his bed for about 20 minutes before walking out to his living room to find him naked on his recliner, drinking a beer and watching UFC. He said to her, "Oh, you're still here? Yeah, I can't get it up. Thought you figured that out. You can leave now, because we ain't freaking tonight." But because he's got tenure and it's a small town that revolves around football, he's protected and untouchable, because nobody would ever believe he would do something like that. My buddy has tried reporting it, but it was swept under the rug and nothing was ever done, because enough time has passed.